Expand your vocabulary with our Core 2000 Words ebook. It's free and packed with essential expressions that you'll use on a daily basis. Start building your vocabulary today. Click the link in the description below to download your free French ebook before it's gone.
Salut, je m'appelle Ingrid. Hi everybody, I'm Ingrid. Welcome to FrenchPod101.coms, le français en 3 minutes. The fastest, easiest and most fun way to learn French. In the last lesson, we learned how to be grateful to people by saying merci. In this lesson, we'll learn some of the other most common greetings used in France. Vous êtes prêts? Are you ready? Alors, c'est parti. Let's start. The most used informal greeting is salut. Salut. Salut means hi, hello, or goodbye. We use it when we meet but also when we leave. We should only use this greeting with friends and family. And now, let's continue by discussing the formal way to greet people. The one you are probably used to hearing is bonjour, bonjour. Literally, bonjour means good day. However, we may also interpret it as good morning or good afternoon. As a rule of thumb, we can use bonjour only during the daytime, from morning until evening. During the evening, we say bonsoir, bonsoir. Soir is French for evening, so bonsoir means good evening. Bonjour and bonsoir are used when we meet someone, but when we leave, we don't say them again. In this formal situation, French people use au revoir, au revoir. Au revoir means goodbye. Finally, in French, we have an expression meaning see you soon that can be considered both formal and informal. À bientôt. À bientôt. Now, you can greet people in many different ways in French. Let's review them all again. When meeting someone informally, we say salut. When meeting someone formally, we say bonjour or bonsoir. When living in a formal situation, au revoir. When living, no matter whether it's formal or informal situation, à bientôt. It's easy, isn't it? Now it's time for Ingrid's insights. In formal situation, French people commonly greet each other by shaking hands. On the other hand, if we meet someone we are really friends with, we kiss each other on both cheeks. Don't be afraid to do it with your French friends, it's normal. During the next lesson, we'll learn the meaning of the phrase Parlez-vous anglais? Do you already know it? We'll be waiting to talk about it with you in our next Le Français en 3 minutes lesson. À bientôt! Welcome to FrenchPod101.coms, le français en 3 minutes. The fastest, easiest and the most fun way to learn French. Salut, je m'appelle Ingrid. Enchantée. Hi, I'm Ingrid. Nice to meet you. In this series, we are going to learn basic French expressions. It's super easy and it only takes 3 minutes. In this lesson, you're going to learn how to introduce yourself in French. There are only 2 sentences you need to do it. But first, it is important to clarify that in French, there is a difference between the formal and the informal language. Let's first see how French people introduce themselves in an informal situation. Salut, je m'appelle Ingrid. Enchantée de te rencontrer. Hi, I'm Ingrid. Nice to meet you. Salut, je m'appelle Ingrid. Enchantée de te rencontrer. Start by saying salut, je m'appelle. Then say your name. Salut, je m'appelle Ingrid. Finally, say enchantée de te rencontrer. Salut, je m'appelle Ingrid. Enchantée de te rencontrer. And now, let's see the same sentence in formal speech. Bonjour, je m'appelle Ingrid Dubreuil. Je suis enchantée de vous rencontrer. Good morning, I'm Ingrid Dubreuil. Nice to meet you. Bonjour, je m'appelle Ingrid Dubreuil. Je suis enchantée de vous rencontrer. So, what has changed from the previous introduction? Let's take a closer look at this together. Salut has been substituted with the formal greeting bonjour, French for good day. Je m'appelle Ingrid has not been changed. Je m'appelle stands in both cases for I am. However, during a formal self-introduction, we always say our last name, so I said Ingrid Dubreuil. Here, you would say your full name. Finally, pay attention to the ending. We went from te rencontrer to vous rencontrer. What is changing is the French word for you. In a formal sentence, we use the more polite word vous. One more time. The informal way to introduce yourself in French is Salut, je m'appelle Ingrid. Enchantée de te rencontrer. The formal way to introduce yourself is Bonjour, je m'appelle Ingrid Dubreuil. Je suis enchantée de vous rencontrer. Now it's time for Ingrid's Insights. When you introduce yourself, it's a good habit to shake hands in France, and if you are not sure whether to use Enchantée de te rencontrer or Enchantée de vous rencontrer, just simply say Enchantée, as I said at the beginning of this lesson. If you use the correct sentence with French people, they are definitely going to be impressed. Do you know how we say thank you in French? You will learn how to say this and many other words in the next lesson. À bientôt pour la prochaine leçon. See you then! Salut, je m'appelle Ingrid. Hi everybody, I'm Ingrid. Welcome to FrenchPod101.com's Le français en 3 minutes. The fastest, easiest and most fun way to learn French. In the last lesson, we learned how to introduce ourselves in French. Today, we are going to learn how to use good manners as we thank people. Vous êtes prêts? Are you ready? Alors, c'est parti! So, let's start. There are several ways to thank someone. Let's start with the easiest. It is just one word. Merci. Merci. Merci means thank you. When saying thank you very much, you just need to add beaucoup. Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup. Beaucoup means a lot. So merci beaucoup is like saying thank you very much. During the last lesson, we mentioned both the informal and the formal way of speaking French. Merci is the casual way to thank someone. If you want to be more formal, there is another phrase you should use. Je vous remercie. Je vous remercie. Let's break this phrase down. Je is I, and vous is the formal word for you. Remercie means give thanks. I give thanks to you. Je vous remercie. How do you answer? It's easy. There are basically two different ways to do it. The first is de rien. De rien. De rien literally means it's nothing, but it is the equivalent of you are welcome. The other way to say you are welcome is the expression je vous en prie. Je vous en prie. Literally, this phrase means I beg you to do it or please do, but it has become a common and polite way to respond to someone thanking you. So when someone's saying merci to you, we can simply reply with de rien or je vous en prie. Now it's time for Ingrid's Insights. If you're not sure about whether to use merci or je vous remercie, just keep it simple. You don't have to worry about formal or informal situations. Merci can be used with just about anyone, anywhere or at any time. Do you know what au revoir means? In our next lesson, you will learn this and other greetings in French. À bientôt et merci à la prochaine leçon. Salut, je m'appelle Ingrid. Hi everybody, I'm Ingrid. Welcome to FrenchPod101.com's Le français en 3 minutes. the fastest, easiest, and most fun way to learn French. In the last lesson, we learned the most common forms of greetings in French. Do you remember them? In this lesson, we are going to learn a very useful phrase. Do you speak English? If you find yourself in a situation where you need assistance in English, this phrase can be a lifesaver. And because you're asking it in French, you can be sure that everyone will understand what you're saying, even if their answer is no. Here's the informal way to say it. Est-ce que tu parles anglais? Est-ce que tu parles anglais? In French, verbs change depending on the pronoun that is used. Please notice the word tu in the middle of the sentence. Remember that this is the informal way to say you. The next word is the verb parler, which means to speak. Because it's referring to tu, it's conjugated to tu parles. Est-ce que is an interrogative form to introduce a question. It is similar to the English word do here. And you probably recognize anglais, that is English. Est-ce que tu parles anglais? To learn how to properly conjugate verbs like parler, please look at the Absolute Beginner series on FrenchPod101.com. You can find very detailed grammar lessons and resources there. We are now going to make this sentence formal. First, we need to use a formal version of you, which is vous. If we change the word to vous, we will conjugate parler differently. It becomes this, but it's pronounced the same way, parler. Est-ce que vous parlez anglais? Est-ce que vous parlez anglais? Adding excuse-moi, excuse me, the sentence becomes even more polite. Excusez-moi, est-ce que vous parlez anglais? Excusez-moi, est-ce que vous parlez anglais? The responses you will receive could be one of these three. Oui, yes. Oui. Un peu, a little. Un peu. Non, je ne parle pas anglais. No, I don't speak English. Non, je ne parle pas anglais. Since this last one is a negative statement, we need to say ne before the verb, parle, and pas after it. Notice that the verb parle is slightly different from parler. Remember, the verb changed depending on the pronoun used. We are now talking about je, French for I, thus I don't speak is je ne parle pas. Now it's time for Ingrid's insights. For those of you who are not only English speakers, you can obviously use this question with any other language you need. French people study other European languages at school, so maybe you will get lucky. Just substitute anglais with English, Italien for Italian, Russe for Russian, Espagnol for Spanish, Allemand for German, and any other languages. In this lesson, we mentioned the expression excusez-moi. But did you know that this could also be used as an apology? In the next lesson, we will learn this and other ways to apologize in French. It's never too late to show your good manners with French people. I'll see you in our next Le Français en 3 minutes. À bientôt! Salut, je m'appelle Ingrid. Hi everybody, I'm Ingrid. Welcome to FrenchPod101.com's Le Français en 3 minutes, the fastest, easiest, and most fun way to learn French. In the last lesson, we learned the phrase Excusez-moi. Est-ce que vous parlez anglais? Excuse me, do you speak English? We mentioned the word Excusez-moi, which means excuse me, in formal French. In this lesson, we are going to learn how to use Excusez-moi and other words when apologizing in French. We should use excusez-moi in formal situations, such as when you are ordering something in bars or restaurants. For example, excusez-moi, un café s'il vous plaît. Excuse me, a coffee please. Excusez-moi, un café s'il vous plaît. We can also use it when asking a question. Excusez-moi, où est la Tour Eiffel? Excuse me, where is the Eiffel Tower? Excusez-moi, où est la Tour Eiffel? Sometimes we also hear people saying s'il vous plaît, which means the same thing when you want to draw somebody's attention. We always use this phrase in formal speech. S'il vous plaît. The informal way to say excuse me is excuse-moi. Excuse-moi. Just like excusez-moi, we can use excuse-moi when asking a question or when apologizing. We can also use the word pardon. You might hear this phrase translated as forgive me in English, but it's not formal or strong at all. French people use it in very casual situations. All of these phrases can be used for either excuse me or I'm sorry. But if you really want to apologize for something, it might be better to use a different phrase. That phrase is je suis désolé. It means I am sorry, and can be used in both formal and informal situations. Je suis désolé. First, we have the familiar je or I. Next, we insert the French word for to be, être. When this is conjugated for je in French, it is suis. Finally, we have the adjective désolé, meaning sorry. Je suis désolé. Now it's time for Ingrid's insights. Please remember that in France, if you accidentally bump into someone, we don't say I'm sorry. Je suis désolé. Instead, we say excusez-moi, excuse me, or pardon, forgive me. Are you able to count in French? In the next lesson, we will learn the numbers in French from 1 to 10. I'll be waiting for you in the next lesson, le français en 3 minutes. À bientôt pour la prochaine leçon. Salut, je m'appelle Ingrid. Hi everybody, I'm Ingrid. Welcome to FrenchPod101.com, le français en 3 minutes. The fastest, easiest, and the most fun way to learn French. In the last lesson, we learned some words used when apologizing in French, including excusez-moi and je suis désolé. In this lesson, we are going to learn numbers in French. Yes, numbers, les nombres, from 1 to 10. And you are going to learn them in only 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Are you ready? Let's start. 1. 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7, 8, 8, 9, 9, 10, 10. Okay, now repeat after me. I'll say the numbers and give you time to repeat each one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Great job! So what is before 1? Do you know? It's the same as in English, but with a different pronunciation. Zéro. Zéro. You don't have any more excuses. You can give your friends your cell phone number in French. Let's try together. We'll use the phrase Mon numéro c'est le, which means my number is. Mon numéro c'est le. Mon numéro c'est le 3 3 7 1 2 2 4 9 6 8. Can you read it by yourself? 3 3 7 1 2 2 4 9 6 8. Perfect. Now it's time for Ingrid's insights. When we go to the post office in France, we sometimes have to stand in line with a number. When it's your turn to check out, they scream numéro 1, numéro 10, and so on. Learn your numbers well so you can be ready. Do you know the French word for 100? In the next lesson, we are going to learn the numbers from 11 to 100 in French. Your task now is to practice the numbers we studied in this lesson, from 1 to 10. À bientôt pour la prochaine leçon! Salut, je m'appelle Ingrid. Hi everybody, I'm Ingrid. Welcome to FrenchPod101.com's Le français en 3 minutes. The fastest, easiest and the most fun way to learn French. In the last lesson, we learned the numbers from 1 to 10. Have you forgotten? Here, I'll tell you again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And now, let's continue from 11. 11, 11, 12, 12, 13, 13, 14, 14, 15, 15, 16, 16, 17, 17, 18, 18, 19, 19. And finally, we have 20, 20. Okay, now repeat after me. I'll say the numbers and give you time to repeat each one. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. These numbers may seem harder to remember, but you really just have to memorize 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 20. But for 17, 18, 19, the numbers always start with 10 or 10. Let's not stop at 20. Counting from 10 to 100 is super easy. Now I'll give you the tens. 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. While you have to memorize a few of these numbers, there are a couple of tricks that will make memorizing them incredibly easy. Notice that 60 is 60 and 70 is 70. Do you remember what this means? Of course, it is a number for 10. So 70 is simply 60-10, 70. 70. 80 is 80. Can you break this down? The first part, which we learned in the previous lesson, is 4. The second part we learned earlier in this lesson. What does it mean? That's right, 20. So altogether, saying 80 is like saying 4 20s. 4 20. And 90, 90, is just like 70. Add 10 to the number before. 80 plus 10 is 90. 90. 90. The last thing to learn today is how to form compound numbers above 20. This is also super easy. Take the tens and simply add the numbers you learned in the previous lesson. Let's try it out. How would you say 56 in French? Let's take it step by step. 50 is 50, and then add 6. 56. It's done. Isn't that easy? Let's make another number. For instance, 98. Take 90, 90, and add 8, 8. 98. One last tricky part. If you're trying to add the number 1 in the compound number, for example 21 or 31, you need to add an et before 1. 21 is not 21, it is 21. 31 is 30 et 1. After only 2 lessons, you're now able to count to 100 in French. In the next lesson, we are going to put your number knowledge to use. Do you have the skills to go shopping in France? If not, I'll be waiting for you in the next lesson, le français en 3 minutes. À bientôt pour la prochaine leçon! Salut, je m'appelle Ingrid. Hi everybody, I'm Ingrid. Welcome to FrenchPod101.com's Le français en 3 minutes. The fastest, the easiest and the most fun way to learn French. In the last lesson, we learned how to count in French. I hope you spent some time practicing the numbers because they will come in handy today. We are going to learn how to go shopping in France. Before we go, you need to know how to say how much is it? Combien ça coûte? Combien ça coûte? Are you ready to go shopping in France? Let's go! You see something you like and want to ask the shop clerk how much it costs. The first thing to say to a shop clerk is, Excusez-moi. Do you remember what that means? Excuse me. Excusez-moi, combien ça coûte? Excusez-moi, combien ça coûte? If you want to be more specific when asking how much is it and refer to a certain type of object, we first need to drop the word ça. Next, we need to know if the object is a feminine or masculine object. If it is masculine, add se when referring to it, or cette for a feminine object, and then say the noun. For example, hat is a masculine word. Chapeau. Excusez-moi, combien coûte ce chapeau? Excuse me, how much is that hat? Excusez-moi, combien coûte ce chapeau? And skirt is a feminine noun. Jupe. Excusez-moi, combien coûte cette jupe? Excuse me, how much is this skirt? Excusez-moi, combien coûte cette jupe? At this point, the shop clerk can answer by saying ça coûte, ça fait, or c'est. For example, ça coûte 39 euros. Ça fait 39 euros. Or, c'est 39 euros. What number is 39? I'm not telling you. Okay, it's 39. It costs 39 euros. Now it's time for Ingrid's insights. A quicker way to ask how much is c'est combien, which literally means how much. Even when you ask for a coffee, you can ask the cashier, un café c'est combien s'il vous plaît? One espresso please, how much is it? At this point, can you count euros in French? We are going to learn how to do this and much more in the next lesson. I'll be waiting for you in our next lesson, le français en 3 minutes. À bientôt pour la prochaine leçon!
Welcome to Can Do French by FrenchPod101.com.
Bonjour à tous, je suis Lia Mercier. Hi everyone, I'm Lia Mercier. In this lesson, you'll learn how to talk about your occupation in French.
This is Mark Lee, and he's on a plane to France. He asks the passenger sitting next to him, Hugues Henry, "Are you a student?"
Êtes-vous étudiant?
Listen to the conversation and focus on Hugues' response. The speakers in this conversation use formal French. Ready?
Êtes-vous étudiant?
Non, je ne suis pas étudiant. Je suis investisseur.
Once more with the English translation.
Êtes-vous étudiant?
Are you a student?
Non, je ne suis pas étudiant. Je suis investisseur.
No, I'm not a student. I'm an investor.
Let's take a closer look at the conversation.
Do you remember how Mark asks, "Are you a student?"
Êtes-vous étudiant?
First is
être,
are, as in are you.
être, être, être,
Is from the verb
être,
meaning to be.
être,
After this is
vous,
the plural form of you, as in you all. But here it's the formal way to address a single person.
vous, vous,
Together,
êtes-vous,
are you, when addressing a single person.
êtes-vous,
Last is the word
étudiant,
student.
étudiant, étudiant,
In French, all nouns have grammatical gender and are either singular or plural.
étudiant,
Is masculine singular. Altogether, it's
êtes-vous étudiant?
are you a student?
Êtes-vous étudiant?
Now, let's take a closer look at the response.
Do you remember how Oog says, "No, I'm not a student. I'm an investor."
Non, je ne suis pas étudiant. Je suis investisseur.
First is
Non,
no.
non, non,
It answers Mark's yes or no question. Are you a student?
êtes-vous étudiant?
After this, Oog specifies that he's not a student.
Je ne suis pas étudiant.
I'm not a student.
Je ne suis pas étudiant.
First is
Je,
I.
je
After this is
ne suis pas,
meaning am not.
ne suis pas,
Let's start with
suis,
meaning am, as in I am.
suis, suis, suis,
Is from the verb
être,
meaning to be.
être,
Before the verb is
ne, ne, ne,
after the verb is
pas, pas, pas,
together
ne, pas,
means not.
ne, pas,
Altogether, it's
je ne suis pas,
I am not.
je ne suis pas,
Next is
étudiant,
student.
étudiant,
Altogether,
je ne suis pas étudiant,
I'm not a student.
je ne suis pas étudiant,
Oog then tells Mark his actual occupation.
je suis investisseur,
I'm an investor.
je suis investisseur,
First is
je,
I. Next is
suis,
am, as in I am.
suis,
Last is
investisseur,
investor.
investisseur, investisseur,
The word
investisseur,
is a masculine singular noun. Together,
je suis investisseur,
I'm an investor.
je suis investisseur.
Altogether,
Non, je ne suis pas étudiant, je suis investisseur.
no, I'm not a student. I'm an investor.
Non, je ne suis pas étudiant. Je suis investisseur.
The pattern is
Non, je ne suis pas occupation, je suis actual occupation.
no, I'm not occupation. I'm actual occupation.
Non, je ne suis pas occupation, je suis actual occupation.
Imagine you're Emma Auge, a student. The word for female student is
Étudiante, étudiante, étudiante.
Ook asks if you're a teacher. The word for a female teacher is
Professeur, professeur, professeur.
say, no, I'm not a teacher. I'm a student. Ready?
Non, je ne suis pas professeur, je suis étudiante.
No, I'm not a teacher. I'm a student.
Non, je ne suis pas professeur, je suis étudiante.
Let's look at some more examples. Listen and repeat or speak along with the native speakers.
Non, je ne suis pas étudiant. Je suis investisseur. Non, je ne suis pas étudiant. Je suis investisseur.
Non, je ne suis pas professeur, je suis étudiante. Non, je ne suis pas professeur, je suis étudiante.
Non, je ne suis pas professeur. Je suis ingénieur. Non, je ne suis pas professeur. Je suis ingénieur.
Non, je ne suis pas infirmière, je suis médecin. Non, je ne suis pas infirmière, je suis médecin.
Non, je ne suis pas étudiante. Je suis professeur. Non, je ne suis pas étudiante. Je suis professeur.
Non, je suis barista. Non, je suis barista.
Did you notice how the last speaker omits part of the response?
Non, je suis barista.
No, I'm a barista.
Non, je suis barista.
When directly responding to someone's question, it's often possible to omit part of the response. Here, by simply answering,
Non,
no, there's no need to say,
je ne suis pas étudiant.
I'm not a student. The pattern is,
Non, je suis actual occupation.
no, I'm actual occupation.
Non, je suis actual occupation.
You should be aware of this pattern, but for this lesson, we'll use the pattern.
Non, je ne suis pas occupation. Je suis actual occupation.
No, I'm not occupation. I'm actual occupation.
Non, je ne suis pas occupation. Je suis actual occupation.
Let's review the key vocabulary. Student,
Étudiant. Étudiant. Étudiante. Étudiante.
teacher,
Professeur. 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 Professeur.
engineer,
Ingénieur. 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 Ingénieur.
nurse,
Infirmier. Infirmier. Infirmière. Infirmière. Médecin.
doctor,
Médecin. Médecin. Barista.
barista,
Barista. Barista. Let's review. Respond to the prompts by speaking aloud. Then, repeat after me, focusing on pronunciation. Ready? Do you remember the word for a male investor? Investisseur. Investisseur. And how to say I? Je. Je. Do you remember how Hugues says, I'm an investor? Je suis investisseur. Je suis investisseur. Do you remember the word for a male student? Étudiant. Étudiant. Do you remember how Hugues says, I'm not a student? Je ne suis pas étudiant. Je ne suis pas étudiant. Do you remember how Hugues Henry says, I'm not a student, I'm an investor?
Je ne suis pas étudiant, je suis investisseur.
Je ne suis pas étudiant. Je suis investisseur. Do you remember the formal way to say you? Vous. Vous. Do you remember how Mark Lee asks, Are you a student? Remember, Mark uses formal French.
Êtes-vous étudiant?
Êtes-vous étudiant? Do you remember the word for a female student? Étudiante. Étudiante. And the word for a male teacher? Professeur. Professeur. Do you remember the word for a female teacher? Professeur. Professeur. Do you remember the word for a male engineer? Ingénieur. Ingénieur.
Let's practice. Imagine you're Mark Lee and you're an engineer. Respond to Hugues' question. Ready?
Êtes-vous professeur?
Non, je ne suis pas professeur. Je suis ingénieur.
Listen again and repeat.
Non, je ne suis pas professeur. Je suis ingénieur. Non, je ne suis pas professeur. Je suis ingénieur.
Let's try another. Imagine you're Leah Mercier and you're a teacher. Ready?
Êtes-vous étudiante?
Non, je ne suis pas étudiante. Je suis professeure.
Listen again and repeat.
Non, je ne suis pas étudiante. Je suis professeure. Non, je ne suis pas étudiante. Je suis professeure.
Let's try one more. Now, imagine you're Emma Auge and you're a student. Ready?
Êtes-vous professeur?
Non, je ne suis pas professeur. Je suis étudiante.
Listen again and repeat.
Non, je ne suis pas professeur. Je suis étudiante. Non, je ne suis pas professeur. Je suis étudiante.
This is the end of this lesson.
Remember, these can-do lessons are about learning practical language skills. What's next? Show us what you can do. When you're ready, take your assessment. You can take it again and again, so try anytime you like. Our teachers will assess it and give you your results.
Well done! Now you know how to talk about your occupation in French. That's all there is to it. Keep practicing and move on to the next lesson. This is the end of this lesson.
Now, here's what you can do to cement this conversation in your head. Review the conversation with our dialogue tool and lesson transcripts. Study the key words and phrases with our spaced repetition flashcards. Review the key grammar and cultural tips inside the lesson notes. And test yourself with our assessment tests. So click the link in the description right now and sign up for your free lifetime account to access our Can-Do course.
Well done! Now you know how to talk about your occupation in French. That's all there is to it. Keep practicing and move on to the next lesson.
Welcome to Can-Do French by FrenchPod101.com.
Bonjour à tous, je suis Lia Mercier. Hi everyone, I'm Lia Mercier. In this lesson, you learn how to give your phone number.
This is Mark Lee, and he's at City Hall registering his address. The civil servant who is helping him says, "Your phone number, please."
Votre numéro de téléphone, s'il vous plaît.
Listen to the conversation and focus on the response. Note, the civil servant in this conversation uses formal French. Ready?
Votre numéro de téléphone, s'il vous plaît.
Mon numéro de téléphone est le 06 00 34 57 00.
Once more with the English translation.
Votre numéro de téléphone, s'il vous plaît.
Your phone number, please.
Mon numéro de téléphone est le 06 00 34 57 00.
My phone number is 06 00 34 57 00.
Let's take a closer look at the conversation.
Do you remember how the civil servant says, "Your phone number, please"?
Votre numéro de téléphone, s'il vous plaît.
Let's start with
Numéro de téléphone.
meaning phone number.
Numéro de téléphone.
First is
Numéro.
number.
Numéro. Numéro.
In French, all nouns have grammatical gender and are either singular or plural.
Numéro.
Is masculine and singular. A fact that determines the form of other words in the sentence. Next is
De.
of in this context.
De.
Last is
Téléphone.
phone.
Téléphone. Téléphone.
Note,
Téléphone.
translates as telephone or phone. We'll use the abbreviated version, phone, as this will include various kinds of phones, including mobile phones, landlines, and so forth. Together, it's
Numéro de téléphone.
this literally means number of telephone, or telephone's number, but it translates as telephone number or phone number.
Numéro de téléphone.
Before this is
Votre.
meaning your in this formal context.
Votre. Votre.
Note,
Votre.
fundamentally means your when referring to more than one person, but it's also a formal way to say your when speaking to someone directly using formal French. Now, you might be more familiar with
Ton.
an informal word for your, as in
Ton numéro de téléphone.
your phone number. As this is a city office setting, the formal form
Votre.
is more appropriate. Altogether,
Votre numéro de téléphone.
your phone number.
Votre numéro de téléphone.
Last is
S'il vous plaît.
meaning please.
S'il vous plaît. S'il vous plaît.
Altogether, it's
Votre numéro de téléphone, s'il vous plaît.
your phone number, please.
Votre numéro de téléphone, s'il vous plaît.
Remember this request. You'll hear it again later.
Let's take a closer look at the response.
Do you remember Mark's response? My phone number is 0600345700.
Mon numéro de téléphone est le 06 00 34 57 00.
Do you remember the phrase for phone number?
Numéro de téléphone.
Phone number.
Numéro de téléphone.
Before this is the word
Mon.
my.
Mon. Mon.
In this sentence,
Mon.
is masculine and singular to agree with.
Numéro.
Altogether, it's
Mon numéro de téléphone.
my phone number.
Mon numéro de téléphone.
Next is
Est.
is, as in my phone number is.
Est. Est. Est.
Is from the verb
Être.
meaning to be.
Être.
Together, it's
Mon numéro de téléphone est.
my phone number is.
Mon numéro de téléphone est.
Next is
Le.
think of it like the in English.
Le. Le.
Here
Le.
is also masculine singular to agree with.
Numéro.
Note, in this sentence, the article
Le.
does not have a corresponding English translation. Next is Mark's phone number.
06 00 34 57 00. 06 00 34 57 00.
Note how Mark says his phone number. When giving your number in French, include a slight pause after each group of two numbers. Altogether, it's
Mon numéro de téléphone est le 06 00 34 57 00.
my phone number is 06 00 34 5700.
Mon numéro de téléphone est le 06 00 34 57 00.
The pattern is
Mon numéro de téléphone est le phone number.
my phone number is phone number.
Mon numéro de téléphone est le phone number.
To use this pattern, simply replace the phone number placeholder with your phone number. Imagine your phone number is 0011223344.
0 0 1 1 2 2 3 3 4, 4. 00, 11, 22, 33, 44.
Say, my phone number is 0011223344. Ready?
Mon numéro de téléphone est le 0011223344.
My phone number is 0011223344.
Mon numéro de téléphone est le 0011223344.
In France, all numbers start with 0, with the exception of emergency services.
Let's look at some examples. Listen and repeat, or speak along with the native speakers.
Mon numéro de téléphone est le 06 00 34 57 00.
Mon numéro de téléphone est le 0011223344.
Mon numéro de téléphone est le 00 99 88 77 66.
Mon numéro de téléphone est le 07 9 8 7 6 5 4 3 2.
00, 01, 10, 10, 02. Did you notice how I omitted mon numéro de téléphone est le 00, 01, 10, 10, 02.
0001101002. When directly responding to a request, it's often possible to omit part of the response. Here, by simply giving your phone number, there's no need to say,
Mon numéro de téléphone est le
my phone number is. The pattern is,
phone number.
you should be aware of this shortcut, but for this lesson, we'll use the sentence pattern.
Mon numéro de téléphone est le phone number.
My phone number is phone number.
Mon numéro de téléphone est le phone number. Let's review. Respond to the prompts by speaking aloud. Then, repeat after me, focusing on pronunciation. Ready? Do you remember how to say phone? Téléphone. Téléphone. And how to say number? Numéro. Numéro. Do you remember how to say phone number? Numéro de téléphone. Numéro de téléphone. And how to say my phone number. Mon numéro de téléphone. Mon numéro de téléphone. Do you remember how to say my phone number is? Mon numéro de téléphone est? Mon numéro de téléphone est? Do you remember how Mark says, my phone number is 0600345700?
Mon numéro de téléphone est le 06 00 34 57 00.
Mon numéro de téléphone est le 06 00 34 57 00. Do you remember the formal way to say your phone number? Votre numéro de téléphone. Votre numéro de téléphone. And how to say please? S'il vous plaît. S'il vous plaît. Do you remember how the civil servant says, your phone number, please?
Votre numéro de téléphone, s'il vous plaît.
Votre numéro de téléphone, s'il vous plaît.
Let's practice. Imagine you're Karen Lee, and your phone number is
08 72 36 90 66.
Respond to the civil servant's request. Ready?
Votre numéro de téléphone, s'il vous plaît.
Mon numéro de téléphone est le 08 7 2 3 6 9 0 6 6.
Listen again and repeat.
Mon numéro de téléphone est le 08 7 2 3 6 9 0 6 6. Mon numéro de téléphone est le 08 7 2 3 6 9 0 6 6.
Let's try another. Imagine you're Ben Lee, and your phone number is
01 10 10 02 03.
Ready?
Votre numéro de téléphone, s'il vous plaît.
Mon numéro de téléphone est le 0 1 1 0 1 0 0 2 0 3.
Listen again and repeat.
Mon numéro de téléphone est le 0 1 1 0 1 0 0 2 0 3. Mon numéro de téléphone est le 0 1 1 0 1 0 0 2 0 3.
Let's try one more. Imagine you're Justine Jerome, and your phone number is
00 99 88 77 66.
Ready?
Votre numéro de téléphone, s'il vous plaît.
Mon numéro de téléphone est le 00 99 88 77 66.
Listen again and repeat.
Mon numéro de téléphone est le 00 99 88 77 66. Mon numéro de téléphone est le 00 99 88 77 66.
This is the end of this lesson.
Remember, these can-do lessons are about learning practical language skills. What's next? Show us what you can do. When you're ready, take your assessment. You can take it again and again, so try anytime you like. Our teachers will assess it and give you your results.
Now you know how to give your phone number in French. That's all there is to it. Keep practicing and move on to the next lesson. This is the end of this lesson.
Now, here's what you can do to cement this conversation in your head. Review the conversation with our dialogue tool and lesson transcripts. Study the key words and phrases with our spaced repetition flashcards. Review the key grammar and cultural tips inside the lesson notes. And test yourself with our assessment tests. So click the link in the description right now and sign up for your free lifetime account to access our Can-Do course.
Now you know how to give your phone number in French. That's all there is to it. Keep practicing and move on to the next lesson.
Welcome to Can Do French by FrenchPod101.com.
Bonjour à tous, je suis Lia Mercier. Hi everyone, I'm Lia Mercier. In this lesson, you learn how to introduce yourself in French.
This is Mark Lee, and he's on a plane to France. Hugues Henry, a passenger sitting next to him, introduces himself by saying, Hi, my name is Hugues. Nice to meet you.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Hugues. Enchanté.
Listen to the conversation and focus on Mark's response. Note, both Hugues and Mark use only their first names. Ready?
Bonjour, je m'appelle Hugues. Enchanté.
Je m'appelle Marc. Enchanté.
Once more with the English translation.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Hugues. Enchanté.
Hi, my name is Hugues. Nice to meet you.
Je m'appelle Marc. Enchanté.
My name is Mark. Nice to meet you.
Let's take a closer look at Mark's response.
Do you remember how Mark Lee introduces himself? My name is Mark. Nice to meet you.
Je m'appelle Marc. Enchanté.
Let's start with the expression.
Enchanté.
This literally means enchanted, but it translates as nice to meet you.
Enchanté. Enchanté.
Do you remember how Mark Lee says, My name is Mark?
Je m'appelle Marc.
First is
Je.
I.
Je. Je.
Next is,
M'appelle.
which translates as call myself.
M'appelle. M'appelle.
This starts with
Me.
me.
Me. Me.
Next is
Appelle.
call, as in I call.
Appelle. Appelle. Appelle.
Is from the verb
Appeler.
meaning to call.
Appeler. Me.
Is contracted with
Appelle.
to form.
M'appelle.
Together,
Je m'appelle.
literally means I myself call, but it translates as my name is.
Je m'appelle
Next is the name
Marc.
Mark.
Marc. Marc.
Together it's
Je m'appelle Marc.
my name is Mark.
Je m'appelle Marc.
The pattern is
Je m'appelle name.
my name is name.
Je m'appelle name.
To use this pattern, simply replace the name placeholder with your name. Imagine you're Karen. In French,
Karen. Karen. Karen.
say, my name is Karen. Ready?
Je m'appelle Karen.
My name is Karen.
Je m'appelle Karen.
In written French, the spelling of the expression enchanté will depend on the genders of a speaker. For male speakers, enchanté. For female speakers, enchanté. Note the additional E at the end of the word. The pronunciation of these two variations will be exactly the same.
Let's look at some more examples. Listen and repeat or speak along with the native speakers.
Je m'appelle Hugues. Enchanté. Je m'appelle Hugues. Enchanté.
Je m'appelle Marc. Enchanté. Je m'appelle Marc. Enchanté.
Je m'appelle Karen. Enchantée. Je m'appelle Karen. Enchantée.
Je m'appelle Lia. Enchanté. Je m'appelle Lia. Enchanté.
Je suis Sadia, enchantée. Je suis Sadia, enchantée.
Did you notice how the last speaker uses a different pattern?
She says,
Je suis Sadia, enchantée.
I'm Sadia. Nice to meet you.
Je suis Sadia, enchantée.
First is
Je.
I.
Je
Next is
suis.
am.
Suis. Suis. Suis.
Is from the verb
Être.
meaning to be.
Être.
Next is the name
Sadia.
Sadia.
Sadia. Sadia.
Altogether,
Je suis Sadia.
I am Sadia.
Je suis Sadia.
The pattern is
Je suis name.
I am name.
Je suis name.
You should be aware of this pattern, but for this lesson, we'll use the pattern
Je m'appelle name.
my name is name.
Je m'appelle name.
Let's review the key vocabulary.
Bonjour.
Hi,
Bonjour. Bonjour. Let's review. Respond to the prompts by speaking aloud. Then repeat after me, focusing on pronunciation. Ready? Do you remember how to say I? Je. Je. And how to say I call myself? Je m'appelle. Je m'appelle. Do you remember how Mark says, My name is Mark? Je m'appelle Marc. Je m'appelle Marc. Do you remember how to say, Nice to meet you? Enchanté. Enchanté. Do you remember how Mark says, My name is Mark. Nice to meet you?
Je m'appelle Marc. Enchanté.
Je m'appelle Marc. Enchanté. Do you remember how Hugues says hi? Bonjour. Bonjour. Do you remember how Hugues says, Hi, my name is Hugues. Nice to meet you.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Hugues. Enchanté.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Hugues. Enchanté.
Let's practice. Imagine you're Karen.
Karen.
Respond to Hugues' self-introduction. Ready?
Bonjour, je m'appelle Hugues. Enchanté.
Je m'appelle Karen. Enchantée.
Listen again and repeat.
Je m'appelle Karen. Enchantée. Je m'appelle Karen. Enchantée.
Let's try another. Imagine you're Sadia.
Sadia.
Ready?
Bonjour, je m'appelle Hugues. Enchanté.
Je m'appelle Sadia. Enchantée.
Listen again and repeat.
Je m'appelle Sadia. Enchantée. Je m'appelle Sadia. Enchantée.
Let's try one more. Imagine you're Leah.
Lia.
Ready?
Bonjour, je m'appelle Hugues. Enchanté.
Je m'appelle Lia. Enchantée.
Listen again and repeat.
Je m'appelle Lia. Enchantée. Je m'appelle Lia. Enchantée. In France, when two people meet for the first time, it's also common to just say your name on its own. Right after saying bonjour, you pause a bit and give your name. For example, bonjour, Lia. Enchantée. Hello, Lia. Nice to meet you. This is the end of this lesson.
Remember, these can-do lessons are about learning practical language skills. What's next? Show us what you can do. When you're ready, take your assessment. You can take it again and again, so try any time you like. Our teachers will assess it and give you your results.
Well done! Now you know how to introduce yourself in French. That's all there is to it. Keep practicing and move on to the next lesson. This is the end of this lesson.
Now, here's what you can do to cement this conversation in your head. Review the conversation with our dialogue tool and lesson transcripts. Study the key words and phrases with our spaced repetition flashcards. Review the key grammar and cultural tips inside the lesson notes. And test yourself with our assessment tests. So click the link in the description right now and sign up for your free lifetime account to access our Can-Do course.
Well done! Now you know how to introduce yourself in French. That's all there is to it. Keep practicing and move on to the next lesson.
Welcome to Can-Do French by FrenchPod101.com.
Bonjour à tous, je suis Lia Mercier. Hi everyone, I'm Lia Mercier. In this lesson, you'll learn how to tell someone where you are from in French.
This is Mark Lee, and he's on a plane to France. Hugues Henry, a passenger sitting next to him, asks, "Where are you from?"
D'où venez-vous?
Listen to the conversation and focus on Mark's response. Note, the speakers in this conversation use formal French. Ready?
D'où venez-vous?
Je viens de New York.
Once more with the English translation.
D'où venez-vous?
Where are you from?
Je viens de New York.
I'm from New York.
Let's take a closer look at the conversation.
Do you remember how Hugues Henry asks, "Where are you from?"
D'où venez-vous?
First is
D'où?
from where.
D'où?
This starts with
De.
which translates as from in this context.
De. De.
Next is
Où?
meaning where.
Où? Où? De.
Is contracted with
Où?
to form.
D'où?
Next is
Venez.
come, as in you come.
Venez. Venez. Venez.
Is from the verb
Venir.
meaning to come.
Venir.
After this is
Vous.
which is literally the plural form of you, as in you all. But it's also the formal way to address a single person, as is the case here.
Vous. Vous.
Together
Venez-vous.
translates as you come.
Venez-vous.
Altogether
D'où venez-vous?
literally means from where come you, but it translates as where are you from?
D'où venez-vous?
Remember this question. You'll hear it again later in this lesson.
Now, let's take a closer look at the response.
Do you remember how Mark Lee says, "I'm from New York"?
Je viens de New York.
First is
Je.
I.
Je. Je.
Next is
Viens.
meaning come, as in I come.
Viens. Viens. Viens.
Is from the verb
Venir.
meaning to come.
Venir.
After this is
De.
which means from in this context.
De.
Last is the city,
New York.
New York.
New York. New York.
Altogether it's
Je viens de New York.
this literally means I come from New York, but can translate as I'm from New York.
Je viens de New York.
The pattern is
Je viens de city name.
I'm from city name.
Je viens de city name.
To use this pattern, simply replace the city name placeholder with the name of your hometown. Imagine you're from Sydney.
Sydney. Sydney. Sydney.
Say, I'm from Sydney. Ready?
Je viens de Sydney.
I'm from Sydney.
Je viens de Sydney. When talking about where you're from, de is used before feminine nouns. All cities are feminine in French, so when talking about your hometown or home city, use de. You can also use this pattern with countries. However, countries can be either masculine or feminine. If you use this pattern with a country name that's masculine, use du instead of de. For example, je viens de France. France, France, is feminine. Je viens du Japon. Japon, Japan, is masculine.
Let's look at some examples. Listen and repeat, or speak along with the native speakers.
Je viens de New York. Je viens de New York.
Je viens de Nantes. Je viens de Nantes.
Je viens de Seattle. Je viens de Seattle.
Je viens de Londres. Je viens de Londres.
Je viens de Paris. Je viens de Paris.
Je suis australienne. Je suis australienne.
Did you notice how the last speaker uses a different pattern?
She says,
Je suis australienne.
I'm Australian.
Je suis australienne.
First is
Je.
I.
Je.
Next is
Suis.
am, as in I am.
Suis. Suis. Suis.
Is from the verb
Être.
meaning to be.
Être.
Together it's
Je suis.
meaning I am.
Je suis.
After this is
Australienne.
meaning Australian.
Australienne. Australienne.
Note
Australienne.
is feminine. This pattern is
Je suis nationality.
I'm nationality.
Je suis nationality.
In Mia Martin's case, she uses the feminine adjective
Australienne.
to describe herself.
Je suis australienne.
In the case of a male speaker from Australia, he would use a masculine adjective
Australien.
to describe himself.
Je suis australien.
I'm Australian.
Je suis australien.
You should be aware of this pattern, but for this lesson, we'll use the pattern
Je viens de city name.
I'm from city name.
Je viens de city name.
Let's review the key vocabulary.
Nantes.
Nantes,
Nantes. Nantes. Seattle.
Seattle,
Seattle. Seattle. Londres.
London,
Londres. Londres. Paris,
Paris,
Paris, Paris. Let's review. Respond to the prompts by speaking aloud. Then repeat after me, focusing on pronunciation. Ready? Do you remember how to say New York? New York. New York. And how to say from New York? De New York. De New York. Do you remember how to say I? Je. Je. Do you remember how Mark Lee says, I'm from New York?
Je viens de New York.
Je viens de New York. Do you remember the formal way to say you? Vous. Vous. And how to say from where? D'où. D'où. Do you remember how Hugues Henry asks, where are you from?
D'où venez-vous?
D'où venez-vous? Do you remember how to say London? Londres. Londres. Do you remember how to say Seattle? Seattle. Seattle. Do you remember how to say Paris? Paris. Paris.
Let's practice. Imagine you're Jack Jones from London. Respond to Hugues Henry's question. Ready?
D'où venez-vous?
Je viens de Londres.
Listen again and repeat.
Je viens de Londres. Je viens de Londres.
Let's try another. Imagine you're Emma Auge from Seattle. Ready?
D'où venez-vous?
Je viens de Seattle.
Listen again and repeat.
Je viens de Seattle. Je viens de Seattle.
Let's try one more. Imagine you're Liam Mercier from Paris. Ready?
D'où venez-vous?
Je viens de Paris.
Listen again and repeat.
Je viens de Paris. Je viens de Paris. This is the end of this lesson.
Remember, these can-do lessons are about learning practical language skills. What's next? Show us what you can do. When you're ready, take your assessment. You can take it again and again, so try anytime you like. Our teachers will assess it and give you your results.
Well done! Now you know how to tell where you are from in French. That's all there is to it. Keep practicing and move on to the next lesson. This is the end of this lesson.
Now, here's what you can do to cement this conversation in your head. Review the conversation with our dialogue tool and lesson transcripts. Study the key words and phrases with our spaced repetition flashcards. Review the key grammar and cultural tips inside the lesson notes. And test yourself with our assessment tests. So click the link in the description right now and sign up for your free lifetime account to access our Can-Do course.
Well done! Now you know how to tell where you are from in French. That's all there is to it. Keep practicing and move on to the next lesson.
Hey everyone! Welcome back for more French. It's Pierre from France, and today's lesson will be about 3 words: déjà, encore, toujours. 3 adverbs that are often difficult to translate into English when you don't know the rules. So, without further ado, let's get started. I forgot the accent here. So 3 categories: déjà, encore, and toujours. Déjà is something that you can translate in 2 different ways, like even 3. Like the first meaning of déjà in French is like in the meaning of already or yet. It would depend if it's a question or if it's like positive affirmation. So here, this is the first case. And the second case is like when you translate it with ever or already. So here you've got 2 different meanings, and it will depend if it's a question and if it's positive or if it's negative. This is typical with déjà, and this is the case for the 2 different meanings. So let's start with the first one. Déjà as something that means already or yet. So when you say es-tu déjà arrivé en France? Es-tu déjà arrivé en France? It means like, did you arrive yet? So I don't know why I put en France, but like, es-tu déjà arrivé? Es-tu déjà arrivé? Did you arrive yet? Es-tu déjà arrivé? Did you arrive yet? So here, déjà, it's yet. When you add the question in English and you use yet in the question, you have to translate it by déjà. Did you arrive yet? Es-tu déjà arrivé? But if you want to answer these questions in English, you can say, if like, yeah, you did arrive, you have to say, I have already arrived. So you use already. That's why you put already here. But if you didn't arrive yet, you use, as I just said, yet. But in English, it's a bit different than in French, because here in French, you have to use déjà for the positive one. So in English, you change, you use yet arrived, and in French, it's the same. But in English, you use yet like in the questions, but in French, you have to use something different. You have to use one of those 2, encore or toujours, but with the negative form. Je ne suis pas encore arrivé. Liaison. Je ne suis toujours pas arrivé. So it means like I have not arrived yet. This is the same meaning. Pas encore and toujours pas. It's almost the same meaning. So be careful with that. The opposite of déjà in French is pas encore or toujours pas. I will explain later the real difference between encore and toujours. But for now, just remember that one of the opposite of déjà, in the case when you use déjà as yet or already, the opposite is pas encore or toujours pas. So be careful with that. So this was the first meaning of déjà, like already or yet. But there is another meaning, which is like ever or already. Again, you can see already. So when you ask in English, have you ever been to France? Have you ever been to France? You can say, yeah, I have already been to France, or no, I have never been to France. So let's get started with the question and the negative one. As you can see, in English, to show that it's negative, you add the N at ever. Have you ever been to France? I have never been to France. But in French, we don't have a word for ever. We just say déjà. Es-tu déjà allé en France? And for never, it's easy to translate. You just use jamais. It's like never is always jamais in French. So here you ask the question, es-tu déjà allé en France? I forgot the verb here. Es-tu déjà allé en France? Es-tu déjà allé en France? Es-tu déjà allé en France? Have you ever been to France? So déjà, ever, as a question. But if you want to answer like the positive way, like you want to say, yes, I have already been to France, you have to use, again, the same one. Je suis déjà allé en France. But the negative form would be jamais. So here, we've seen that déjà, like when you use a question or like a positive sentence, you use the same, you use déjà. But like the opposite form of déjà, the negative form, would be different depending on the meaning of the déjà. So if it's like the meaning of already yet, it's pas encore or toujours pas. But if it's the meaning of ever or already, the negative form is jamais. So please be careful. The negative form depends on the real meaning. In French, you cannot put like a negative form of déjà with just pas. You have to choose between one of these two, or one of this one, jamais, or pas encore. So déjà, again, two meanings, and depending on the meanings, different negative form. So this is all for déjà, but that's déjà suffisant. It's enough, right? C'est déjà suffisant. It's already enough. Next one, encore. Encore, like many meanings, 3 meanings. Encore can, like one of the meaning is again. So when you say il est encore en retard, it means like, oh, he is late again. So here, encore, again. So this is the positive form. And the negative form is like in English, you just put he is not late again. You just put the negation, and in French it's the same. Il n'est pas encore en retard. But be careful, because here, when you see the sentence il n'est pas encore en retard, it's not the same pas encore. Je ne suis pas encore arrivé. So be careful with this. Like this sentence, when you see il n'est pas encore en retard, you have 2 meanings. This meanings or this meaning. So be careful, like with just this sentence you cannot guess the meaning, but with the context you can guess the meaning. So be careful, because this pas encore can be the opposite form of encore, but also the opposite form of déjà. So be careful with this. Il est encore en retard, he is late again. Usually you don't use this form a lot, but it exists, so be careful. Usually when you see pas encore, it's mainly this meaning, so just to let you know. Usually the more common sentence with encore, like the positive form, is this one. This one, not a lot, like even in English, he is not late again. You don't use that a lot, but you can say it. So here, encore en retard, he is late again. This is a kind of an easy meaning, right? Let's move on to the next one. Encore, when it means another or more. Like if you want more coffee, je veux encore du café. I want more coffee. I want more coffee. I didn't put the English translation here because I have no space, but je veux encore du café. I want more coffee. Je veux encore du café. Here, more is encore. But here, there is another way to translate encore. Here, when you say je veux encore une tasse de café, you use another. I want another cup of coffee. So here, encore, it's like another or more. What is the difference between this? It's because in English you have like countable and uncountable objects. Like a cup of tea, you cannot count it. You can count it, but like coffee, you cannot count it. So in English, it's more when you count the object, and when you can't count the object is another. But luckily in French, for once, we have something that is easier than in English. No, here it's like just encore for the two situations. So you don't bother. Another and more, it's like encore. No matter if you can count or not the object. Je veux encore du café. Je veux encore une tasse de café. But what is the negative form of that? This is like in English, like not anymore. Like I want more coffee or I don't want coffee anymore. Like more anymore. In English, like in French, it's like you use a completely different noun, like a verb. It's plus. Je ne veux plus. Plus, it's always coupled with ne. Like it's one of the negations. Like usually the negation is ne pas in English or in French. Ne pas. Je ne veux pas travailler. Ne pas. But there is also other negations like with jamais or with plus. So plus, it means like not anymore. So if you want to translate not anymore, not is like ne, and plus anymore. Je ne veux plus de café. So I want more coffee. I don't want I want more coffee. I don't want coffee anymore. Je veux encore du café. Je ne veux plus de café. So what about the case where like you say I don't want another cup of coffee? Like in French, you have to say je ne veux plus d'une tasse de café. But the meaning is a bit different. If you say je ne veux plus d'une tasse de café, it means that you change your mind. Je ne veux plus une tasse de café. So here there is this distinction between like countable and uncountable objects. So just remember this one. Je veux encore du café. If you cannot count the object, like I want more, you say I don't want any more. I want more, I don't want any more. So this is only the negative form. This meaning is only for objects that you cannot count. But for an object that you can count, like the meaning, if you use je ne veux plus d'une tasse de café, you have to put the D. Je ne veux plus d'une tasse de café. It means like you usually you want it, but now you don't want anymore. So this is kind of subtle. Be careful with that. But remember, like je veux encore for countable object, for uncountable objects, the negative form is plus, like in English, more, not anymore. Encore, ne plus. So this was one of the meaning, and another meaning is encore plus, or encore moins. It means like even more or even less. So if you want to say like it's even more interesting, you say c'est encore plus intéressant. C'est encore plus intéressant. It's even more interesting. And if you want to use like the opposite form, like this is the positive one, you can use also the negative one. So if you want to say it's even less expensive, c'est encore moins cher. Encore moins cher. So this is like encore, here it's even. And plus it's like more, and moins it's like less. C'est encore plus, it's even more. C'est encore moins, it's even less. So this one is kind of easy, no tricks with this one. Like encore, it's just even. Those two ones, no tricks. Like encore again or encore even. Here there is like this nuance, like just one word for two words in English. So here it's for encore. And as you can see, there is also this situation where, like when you use the negative form of encore, sometimes it's this one, but more like in the most, like usually it's more this meaning. like the opposite form of déjà. So it's like not yet. So here you see that encore, 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 but pas encore, which is the negative form, like not, like pas encore, pas encore. One of the translation is not yet. So I'm gonna add it. Pas encore. It means sometimes, and in most cases, it means not yet. So this is one of the other meaning of encore. But sometimes pas encore, it means also not again. So you have to be careful of the meaning of the sentence. So that was for encore. Again, another or more, even, and sometimes not yet when there is pas before encore. So let's move on to the next one, toujours. Toujours, first meaning is kind of easy. It means always. Toujours as always. So if you want to say je suis toujours en retard, like in English it's like I'm always late. In English the negative form would be like the opposite of always is never. So you want to say in French you just use the opposite form of toujours, which is jamais. Never, we've seen that before. Jamais, never. So here you can see that jamais is in the same time the opposite form of toujours, but also the opposite form of déjà. So usually the classic form of jamais, the classic counterpart of jamais is toujours. But jamais is always translated by never in English. In this case it's never, and here again it's never. So, je ne suis jamais en retard. Like en retard, same. Je ne suis jamais en retard. But you can also say je ne suis pas toujours en retard, and the difference between je ne suis jamais en retard and je ne suis pas toujours en retard is the same than in English when you say like like I am never late or I am not always late. Like I am never late, like it means no way that can happen, it never happened before. Like I'm never late. And you can say like I'm not always late, like sometimes, but it's not always. So like exactly the same meaning in like the difference between the two. So here, depending on the meaning, the real opposite, the real negation that you want to use, you have to choose between jamais or pas toujours, but it's the same than in English when you have to choose between never or not always. So here, it's an easy one, really easy one. Then there is another one which is encore, toujours, toujours, encore. Like here, you can substitute toujours with encore again, like same than here, and you have to translate it by still. So here, still, when you want to use, like, you want to say, I am still here, I am still here. You can say, je suis encore là, or je suis toujours là. So here it's like, this one is belonging to the two categories, so toujours and encore. Je suis encore là, je suis toujours là. It's roughly the same meaning. It's exactly the same than here, pas encore, toujours pas. Encore, toujours, like it's roughly the same meaning. And here, it's yet, and here, it's still. So be careful. Je suis encore là, je suis toujours là. Je ne suis plus là is the negative form of this, like two positive form, but just one negative form. And again, it's like here, it's like not anymore. So when you want to say, I am still here, in English, you want to do the opposite. So you want to say, I am not here anymore. And in French, je ne suis plus là. So plus, again, even though, like plus you can see here and here, like the negative form of encore, but also the negative form of toujours in some cases. But like, it's not always the same cases, because here encore means like another or more, and here it means like still. But in English, it's kind of easy because in both cases, like je ne veux plus de café, I don't want coffee anymore. Je ne suis plus là, I'm not here anymore. So like this one is easy because plus is always like ne plus, ne plus, ne plus is always not anymore. So this one, it's not a problem. Plus is always the same translation. It's like jamais, it's always never. So like the negative forms is not that complicated to translate. What is important is all the meanings of the words here. And then you have to know the opposite form, but it's like in English usually. So here we've seen that toujours, two different cases, and also I didn't put it back here, but here you have another meaning with toujours, which is like not yet. So toujours, three meanings: always, still, or if it's negative, not yet. But if it's negative, it's sometimes also not always. So let's sum it up. Toujours, you can translate it by always or still, and pas toujours, which is the negative form, you can translate it by not always or not yet. Toujours pas. Okay? So here you've seen that we can use encore and toujours in this case, and here again, pas encore, toujours pas. Please note that pas is not in the same place depending of the adverb, encore and toujours. Pas encore, toujours pas. So here you have two different, like it's almost synonym. Two cases, two adverbs that you can use, but just one situation. So you can wonder if there is a nuance, and there is a nuance. So here, usually, when you use toujours pas, so I'm just talking about the negative one. When you say toujours pas instead of pas encore, it's stronger, like you emphasize what you're saying. Usually it's the same, but if you want to say je ne suis pas encore arrivé, it means like, oh, okay, like someone asks you like, where are you? And you say, oh, je ne suis pas encore arrivé, like I've not arrived yet, so I'm still not here. But if you want to say je ne suis toujours pas arrivé, it can mean something more stronger, like you're tired or you have like a plaintive tone, like like I'm still not here, like I have struggles with the subway or something like that. So when you say toujours pas, it's a bit more like you're not satisfied with the situation, like you're not here and you're not satisfied with that. So usually like the most common one is always encore, like you use encore. This is more common, but if you want to see like if you want to sound more plaintive, you can use toujours pas instead. And if you hear someone saying that, maybe it would be more plaintive, but it's not always the case. Like it's really subtle, and usually like we don't really pay attention to the real nuance between those two. So this is the case when this is negative. Toujours pas, it's like stronger than pas encore, and maybe more plaintive. But here is another one. When you want to say j'ai toujours faim, you can also say j'ai encore faim. As I said here, it's the same, like je suis encore là, je suis toujours là. Here, like it's the same. I'm using this toujours and this encore, I'm using this one. So j'ai toujours faim or j'ai encore faim, it means like I am still hungry. But be careful, because just for this one, j'ai toujours faim, you can also translate it by I'm always hungry. It depends on the meaning. So here you have two meanings. This one, with only j'ai toujours faim, you have two meanings. But this one, j'ai encore faim, you have only one meaning, like I am always hungry. So I'm gonna clarify that. This one you can translate it like this, and for this one, it's only this one. So as you can see here, in English, you have two different meanings. Like, you can understand the difference. But in French, j'ai toujours faim, like those two sentences, you can translate them with the same sentence if you use j'ai toujours faim. But if you really want to make the disambiguation, you translate the first one by this one and you translate the second one by this one. But you can also translate the second one with the first one, j'ai toujours faim. So, this is just like to make you more attentive to this possibility. But here I want to explain the nuance between encore and toujours. So, I am using j'ai toujours faim as I am still hungry. So let's say we don't care about I am always hungry because it's not like the meaning that is interesting here. Let's say that I want to say j'ai toujours faim, not as I am always hungry, but as I am still hungry. What is the difference between j'ai toujours faim and j'ai encore faim? I am still hungry. Two ways to say it in French. And to be honest, there is no real nuance between this. J'ai toujours faim, or I am still hungry, j'ai encore faim, j'ai toujours faim. It's roughly the same meaning. But here, maybe one subtlety would be, like one thing that is subtle is j'ai encore faim. It means like I want more. When you say j'ai encore faim, I want more. But if you say j'ai toujours faim, it means like the situation is still the same. So with like the positive one, toujours, emphasize the fact that the situation is still the same. And here, when you want to say j'ai encore faim, since encore has a meaning of like again or more, like you want something, you want some, like you want addition. So the subtlety, the nuance would be like with this, you want something, you expect something, you expect an addition. But j'ai toujours faim, it's more like you constating, like you stating that the situation is still the same. So we've seen that toujours, encore, and déjà have many ways to translate. You can translate them in many ways. Déjà, like already, yet, or ever already. And if you want the negative form, it's like pas encore, toujours pas, or jamais. And here, like for encore, you have three meanings, again, or another more, like you want addition. Like encore implies that you want addition. Like encore plus, c'est encore plus intéressant, it's a bit different, like even more. And then for toujours, like there is the always, and there is like still, like which is kind of similar to encore. But there is also this toujours pas that you have to be careful with. Toujours. So here, toujours, please refer to this, and this. And for encore, refer to this, and also this, and this. So that's all for today. I hope you understood the differences between those three adverbs. If you really like this video, you can click on the like button and subscribe to our channel. And you can also leave a comment in the comment sections down below. If you want some more resources on French learning, you can go to on our website, like FrenchPod 101. This is a really good website to get more resources and improve your French. So I hope you like it, and see you on next time.
Expand your vocabulary with our core 2,000 words ebook. It's free and packed with essential expressions that you'll use on a daily basis. Start building your vocabulary today. Click the link in the description below to download your free French ebook before it's gone.